Hi everyone, my name is Xu Ying. I'm a rising third year student in the Psychological and Brain Sciences program. So I'm a grad student, and before I became a grad student, I was actually a lab manager for the professor that I'm currently working for now. And so in my role at UCSB, I'm not just a grad student, so I'm also a researcher. So within the PhD program, you both take classes, but you're also working on research projects. So, depending on the theme of your lab and like what your professor like research interests are, like you kind of like have these research projects that you kind of work on, and that is really integrated as part of your program. And also within my time at UCSB, I've been involved with other organizations as well. So I've been involved with the Asian Pacific Islander Graduate Student Alliance, and that's been really helpful for me to kind of find community and to find people to share kind of like similar interests, and to also like meet people outside of my department. And in the last couple of years, I've also been, volunteering with ONDAS and with Malapon, and, volunteering for these kind of like first gen events. So that's been like really awesome to kind of like have these other like side things that I do to keep me engaged, outside of research and outside of class. And I did my undergrad degree at UC San Diego. And then I took 2 years off, to do like the lab manager job before I transitioned to my role as a grad student now.
I can go next. So hi everyone, my name is Miguel. I am a recent UCSB graduate, so class of 2020. I majored in mathematics, and currently I am at a position with CSAP, which stands for Center for Science and Engineering Partnerships. So I was actually an ONDAS peer mentor myself not that long ago. So my last quarter was this past summer. And then I've also been involved with CSAP even more than my current position right now. I first came into CSAP during my summer going into senior year, as a tracking intern, but I ended up just doing a bunch of data science and a lot of computer programming. And that's what I'm currently doing right now at a full-time position. I was also even more involved with CSAP. I was actually the SIMS coordinator this past summer. So SIMS stands for the Summer Institute in Mathematics and Sciences. And it's an opportunity for underrepresented students who are majoring in STEM that are incoming to get familiar with UCSB and have an easier transition into UCSB. And and before all those positions, I used to work at a butcher shop back in Orange County called out of Northgate. Yeah, Northgate. And that's how I really financed my college career, just working like 60 hours a week, sometimes even 70. But yeah, currently being an undergrad or recent graduate, I still kind of am like blurred lines as to what I actually want to do. So I'm pretty happy in my position right now, but I'm not entirely sure if this is what I actually want to do. So I'm actually thinking of applying to graduate school. I want to get my master's in computer science. So I'm still like in the beginning stages of that. So I'm like researching schools and like also UCSB as well. And yeah, that's me.
Hi everyone, my name is Gabrielle and I am an alumni from UC Santa Barbara. I graduated in 2018 and I double majored in ecology and evolution and biological anthropology. I was also a peer mentor and tutor at ONDAS. I also worked at the UC Santa Barbara Women's Center. I also worked at the UCSB Reef, and I also was an orientation leader, I guess is what you would say, for UC Santa Barbara orientation program. So I did a lot of stuff at UCSB. I was in a pre-law frat. I volunteered a lot. I helped out with the Women's Rape Crisis Center downtown in Santa Barbara. So I was really involved in a lot of things. And after I graduated in 2018, I went directly into grad school to get my master's of public health from University of Washington. And I graduated this June 2020. So currently right now, I live in Portland, Oregon with my fiance, and I work at a domestic violence shelter as a prevention education specialist, which means I'm kind of I'm making presentations about a variety of topics that range from consent and healthy relationships to preventative topics around like sex trafficking of youth and minors. I'm also a freelance graphic designer and blogger and writer in my free time. So I've written a couple of things for some publications and some magazines as well. And I don't really know where my career journey is going to take me. I know that I really enjoy education and tutoring and working with students and young folks. So I plan to stay sort of in this realm of like trainings and teaching for the foreseeable future.
All right, thank you all for introducing yourselves. And then the next question we have is, what was your experience like as a first-gen college student?
I guess I can go. So I was a first-gen like college student and also first-gen grad student. And I think, you know, coming into like college in your first year, I don't know why, but I felt like really anxious. And I'm pretty sure like the first years here are probably even more anxious given, you know, the pandemic and everything being online. But, you know, there's that also like added like extra stress of being a first gen student because you're probably unsure of like how to navigate the academic world and how to really utilize the resources that's available to you as, you know, in university. So for me, like the first quarter, like navigating like my college, you know, I was really unsure. I was still like an undecided like major, and that kind of added like an extra stress of like this pressure of not knowing like whether I should like pick a major and what to do. So there was a lot of just like taking like classes here and there. But then on top of that, there's like, you know, no one told me like how much harder like the classes in college are going to be versus like from high school. So like I think the first quarter I still had that mentality thinking, oh, you know, I can just like study the night before and I can like ace my exams, which is so untrue. Like it is completely different ballgame. You really have to like, you know, really study ahead of time and, you know, attend your classes. So, you know, that was like a learning experience for me and really like, oh, you know, it's really not like high school. I really have to like work even harder. And then, you know, there's like the social aspect too of like meeting people because, you know, in high school, you just kind of like socialize with people like who are in your groups and like people in your classes. But then in college, there are like people in your classes, but then you really have to like, you know, go out there and, you know, just kind of like get out of your comfort zone. And for me, that was like also a little bit hard because I've lived, you know, at home with my parents for my whole life. And then to really just kind of like be independent and just like learn things on my own, that was also like a struggle. And because my parents, you know, didn't go to college, I couldn't really like go to them for advice. Or if I was having like a really hard time in college, really like adjusting, I couldn't really go to them to get any kind of advice on like what to do. And so I had to seek out mentors. And these can be like your peers, or, you know, these can oftentimes be like your TAs or your professors because they hold office hours. And usually they're kind of like there for you if you have like problems with like classwork or like the lecture material. But, you know, that time is actually made for you. So you should totally like take advantage of that and really get to know your professors. And who knows, like they might turn out to be really good mentors for you. So for me, it's just like the first year has been kind of like a whirlwind, you know, just like getting really bad grades and then like not knowing like what kind of major or like what classes like really interested me. But I would just say, you know, just take your time and just enjoy the process like while you're in college. And I think, you know, having been through that, like that bit of struggle, I think it's kind of made me a stronger person in the end, and just like being able to be more resilient with any of these like challenges.
I can go next. So my experience of being a first generation student was not very pleasant, not gonna lie. So coming to UCSB was literally my first time stepping on any college campus. So I had absolutely no clue what to expect. And not having my parents to like ask for advice, or my older sibling at all, because he didn't end up going to college. Made me kind of feel really isolated. So that ties in with what Shuyin was saying, like the anxiety really kicked in about like, oh, am I really going to succeed here? Am I going to meet people here? And so I continued. So my first, yeah, so I really thought about changing my major many times because I really struggled a lot in mathematics, especially during my lower division classes. Mainly because I didn't reach out. I didn't ever ask for help. I never went to my professor's office hours. I never went to resources offered by UCSB, such as CLAS, or there's also something called the Math Lab, where graduate students can actually help you with your math courses and like answer any questions that you have about it. And it's really run by graduate students in the math department. So if you're taking math classes, highly recommend the Math Lab and also CLAS. So please do that. Don't be me. Don't be afraid to reach out. But yeah, there were many, many times where I was just like, why am I even doing math? Like, what am I going to do with it? Like, yeah, I sort of enjoy it, but like, I was just struggling so much. And I really was feeling what a term is called imposter syndrome, where I just didn't feel fit for UCSB or for my major at all. And I just feel like I wasn't sufficient. And so that honestly never really went away. So it's really a matter of kind of reminding yourself, if you ever feel that way, reminding yourself you are here for a reason. You made it here because of your qualifications and not because of any other reason. You are very qualified to be at this prestigious university. And so I kept battling on through the years like that, kind of reminding myself like I deserve to be here. And so that's really what made me enjoy my ONDAS peer mentor position was so being an ONDAS peer mentor, I was able to share my experience being a first generation student, also coming from a low income background and like really knowing the struggles about that. And so being able to share my experience with students and letting them know what I wish I had known coming into the university is really sparked like a passion for me of like helping students. And that's another reason why I became the coordinator for the SIMS program as well. And so before the ONDAS position, I was actually working at part of UCSB groundskeeping. And so before my ONDAS position, I was like, I had no experience in an office job whatsoever. Like I mentioned, I worked as a butcher before. And so when I first got my position, I was extremely nervous again, and also feeling that imposter syndrome again, because I had never worked in an office job and I had no clue what to expect. But something in me was like, just take the job, just do it. And lo and behold, I'm here, graduated and having that experience of being a peer mentor. And so that really goes to what I really want to emphasize next is don't be afraid to take any opportunity that comes your way. College is really a place where you grow and develop. It's not just a place where you just come in, get your degree and get a job. That was actually my mentality. My mentality was, all right, I'm just gonna get through my courses, get at least passing grades, so like at least a C. So that I can graduate and then like find a job with some company. But in reality, like as the years went on, I'm like, wow, I'm actually growing as a person. I'm finding out what I really enjoy in life and what I want to do. And so that's what really made me continue my mathematics degree, because I saw what I could do with that. And so, yeah, it may be scary going into this university at first, being a first generation student, but you have to persevere, you have to reach out, you have to ask for help when you need it. Find your place in this university, find a community. You're not just part of the Goucher community. There's so many communities offered by UCSB. There's, for example, with EOP, there's many, they're called, I forget what they're called. Miranda, do you remember the different communities that they have?
The cultural centers?
Yes, the cultural centers.
Yeah, there's like different cultural centers in the Student Resource Building, or SRB, that's what we call it here. There's like the Asian Resource Building, the like African American one, there's like the non-traditional students one. There's like a few, so those are also really, really good places to check out first, I think.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Not also that, there's also so many organizations and clubs offered by UCSB that you can get involved with. There are hundreds. You will find something that likes you. And so, again, take an opportunity that you can, get out of your comfort zone. Just like Shuying said, yeah.
I would say that my experience was pretty similar to Miguel's. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I knew that I wanted to study biology, so I came in as like a biology pre-major just because I liked bio in high school, but I knew I didn't want to be a doctor. And so I think the biggest challenge for me was trying to figure out like what major I could do and how that was going to like lead into what jobs I could get after college. I still to this day struggle with figuring out like what jobs best fit my skills. And I think as someone coming into college with not a lot of family members or relatives that went to college, or their college experience was sort of unique and circuitous, I was very unsure of what I was doing and which path I should be taking, especially being a double major. I had a lot of imposter syndrome as well. Being a Black woman, I was one of the few Black people in most of my classes. And so being in a lot of like very heavy STEM fields, I was like, should I be here? Do I belong here? But yeah, like Miguel mentioned, he's definitely right about connecting with community. That was so important for me. I spent a lot of time in the African Diasporic Resource Center, which is in the SRB. I spent a lot of time off campus at the co-ops as well. I found a lot of community there with folks with similar backgrounds and similar experiences. I spent a lot of time in the RCSGD, the Resource Center for Sexual and Gender Diversity, I believe is what it stands for. And then, like I said, with all of the different jobs that I had at UCSB, just trying to find different communities and different sort of work settings so I could figure out what it was exactly that I wanted to do. But yeah, it was definitely very challenging. I definitely felt very alone, very homesick. I grew up in Anaheim, California, and I just missed my friends and my family from back home because most of them went to schools that were around that area, like UC Irvine and Chapman and stuff. So they were living at home or at least hanging out nearby. And so I felt very isolated from them. But I definitely found a community at UC Santa Barbara, and I had like the time of my life at UC Santa Barbara. It was absolutely incredible. My partner, I actually met him at UCSB my very last year there, and he was a graduate student, and we both have said several times how we would love to go back and just live in Santa Barbara again. I would even live in IB again, honestly, even though I'm a little too old to live in IB. But yeah, I definitely think that you have to push through that feeling of imposter syndrome, that feeling of being like, I don't know if I should be here, if I'm good enough to be here, because there's a lot of people that are thinking that, even people with parents who did go to college or relatives who did go to college. People are just, you feel a little bit like bamboozled when you get there because you realize that the coursework is harder, or suddenly you're not one of the smartest people at your school anymore because everybody is the smartest people at their schools now. And so I think it takes a little bit of adjustment and work with trying to just reacquaint yourself with the amount of rigor that's required in college classes. And I used CLAS a lot. I signed up for CLAS every quarter for all of the math, science, and physics classes. And I think another thing to remember is that it's important and it's okay to fail. I failed 2 classes at UCSB. I thought it was the absolute end of the world, that I was never going to go to grad school or never get a job or anything, but you bounce back. Like, you retake those classes, you talk with your professors, you study and you make friends in your classes and you create study groups. But a lot of people don't pass classes or don't do as well as they want to do in classes, but it's never the end of the world.
Oh yeah, just a friendly reminder, if y'all have questions for Gabby, Miguel, and Shuyin, you can just drop them in the chat and then Miranda will see it. And for the next question, it's, what's one piece of advice you would offer to share with students?
So my piece of advice, so other than, just like putting yourself out there and, like what I said in the first question, I would say be open-minded. Because I feel like sometimes like you kind of go in with this like idea in your head and thinking, I need to finish college in 4 years. I need to take this class because I want this career, like that path. But then, that's kind of like pigeonholing yourself into a very narrow route. And unless you like open up your mind to like possibilities about taking other classes or interacting with other people or just trying something new, like Miguel said, like college is a time where you're not just experiencing new things, you're here to also develop as a person. And, you do that by trying and experiencing like new things. So for me, I'm not like a religious person, but one of my best friends is, and she's invited me to like Bible studies, on campus before. So, I just decided to like try it out and just to like learn more about it because, like growing up, all I kind of like hear about these like religions were just like from these like media and like, just like from very biased sort of groups. And so, I just wanted to like take it for myself to really like learn it from my own point of view and just to like understand it, even though like I don't, I'm not affiliated with it, there's still some like respect of like understanding that. And, by just trying new things, you might discover something that you actually really love. So I just encourage you all to just, be open-minded and try new things.
My piece of advice would be, don't compare yourself to others. It's what the famous line says, like, stay in your lane. Because, there will be some really outstanding students probably in your major as well, like going out to do like presentations at like New York or something like that, or like doing something amazing, or like getting a research position and you're over here struggling in your class. Everyone has a different pace. Everyone has a different, story behind them. It's not that you're not working hard enough or you're not finding the right people or the right connections and so forth. It's, it's more of a matter of what can you do, to really improve your academics. I personally failed I already forget, but like around like 3 or 4 classes, my math classes that were my major. And so, it also goes back to the idea of what I was mentioning, like you really have to persevere, like no matter what's really thrown at you, like if you fail like a couple courses. And so, if you really want to do something, you work for it. I failed, I think 1 lower division class and I think 3 upper division classes because the upper divisions were crazy for me being first generation and all that stuff. So, that's where I was really starting to contemplate things more up in my upper division courses. Should I really change my major? Should I really continue this? I'm failing this. All my other classmates are, talking about like this proof system. We're talking about this like confidently, and they're arguing about the answer while I'm over here like having my own separate answer. And everyone has their different unique stories or their unique backgrounds. You're here for yourself, not to, like really observe others. So I guess the takeaway is, stay in your lane, persevere, and just work really hard because hard work really does pay off.
I would say that my piece of advice would be to push yourself out of your comfort zone. A lot about college is just being uncomfortable sometimes, and that's where growth happens, is when you feel a little awkward, you feel a little comfortable. Like try things that you would have never thought about trying before, like sign up for classes that you would have never taken before, go to club meetings that you would have never thought about going to, because that's how you really can grow. So for me, for example, I wouldn't have considered myself like a public speaker before I went to college. And then when I got my job at the Women's Center, I was in charge of facilitating events and creating presentations and giving them to like audiences of like 80 to 100 people. And I really grew in my public speaking career because of that. But at first it was awkward. I was nervous. I was uncomfortable. I had events that barely anybody came to. I had events that a lot of people came to. And so you're going to like fail at some of the things that you attempted, and you're going to succeed at some of the things you've attempted, just like at anything you're doing in life. And so the point of what I'm trying to get at is just, it's okay to be uncomfortable. It's okay to feel awkward. It's okay to not know what you're doing, because most people don't know what they're doing. They just act like they do.
All right, and then Sophie and Miranda, have you guys gotten any questions?
So first I want to add to thank you, Gabby. Like I go by like the fake it till you make it, which is like not something you should. I mean, I live by it. You know, sometimes I get really nervous, but on the outside, I'm like, okay, I'm confident, but inside, I'm like dying inside. But yes, I have a question. Um, so how did y'all like for undergrad? Like, how did y'all decide what y'all wanted to pursue? Like, what major?
Well, I came in as mathematics, so I kind of stuck to it. But it's really a matter of, similar to what we've been saying, you know, get out of your comfort zone, take different classes, take classes that you didn't think, or like that kind of interest you, or, you know, like, hey, that's kind of interesting, because you'll never know what you'll find. And people really do end up changing majors because of a class that they took, and they really find a passion in that. And so even if a class seems difficult, like if you're interested in physics, but you have no clue what physics is, you know, take that class in physics, take that introductory class in physics to get an idea what it is and if you want to do it. I personally was really interested in econ coming in. So I took econ 1 and then econ 2, and then I realized, okay, I don't like econ. It's not for me. Yeah, I think that would be my advice to really finding what you want to do.
So I came in a little undecided about what I wanted to major in, but then I've always been kind of really interested in like mental health. And so I ended up declaring my major in like psychology, because it was still like broad enough where I can still take classes that might be in like different fields within psychology. So within my first quarter, I also like took this humanities class where I got to like dabble in a little bit of like philosophy, and that really like inspired me, and you know, really pushed me to think, you know, like how people think, and like, you know, more about like what, you know, what our brains do, and like what, like there's just so many things that we don't know about like the human brain. And so that got me more interested in like doing research. And so I've joined some research labs where, you know, I worked in a lab where we studied kids with autism and just like understanding neurodiversity. And then eventually I also joined a lab where we learned about like how the brain ages. And then because of that, I ended up double majoring in cognitive science as well, because I was interested in how computations are also involved. Because, you know, right now there's a lot of like AI and like machine learning. So there's a lot of like very interdisciplinary kind of like realms that learning about the brain and the mind can kind of like broaden you and expose you to. So I was like really interested in that and just getting exposure from all of that. And that's kind of like what led me to pursue a graduate degree in psychological and brain sciences, because I really do enjoy the research. And right now, I'm studying basically how our hormones change as we age, especially for women who go through menopause. And the kind of like funny saying that we say in our lab is that research is me-search, because we're studying what's going to happen to us. And, you know, I think that is like one of the driving forces of what motivates you to kind of pursue the major or pursue whatever you're studying, because it's relevant to you and it really like, you know, fuels your passion for what you do, especially if, you know, for me, I'm like, you know, I want to know what happens to me when I go through menopause, you know, like what's going to happen to my brain, you know, like, you know, is my memory going to just like go down the drain? So just like having this like opportunity is like a huge blessing, and I'm really grateful for it.
So I picked biology because I just was really good at it in high school, and I've always loved it. I got a microscope for Christmas when I was 9 years old, and I would put like little cheek cells on it and look at it, and I was like, oh, I'm a scientist. And then right before actually orientation, I watched a TED Talk, and it was on evolutionary anthropology, and I was like, wow, that's like really interesting. I had like never heard of this, because that's not something that's usually taught in high school. And so I signed up for an evolutionary anthropology class in orientation, because my orientation leader was also a major in that, and she was like, yeah, you should just take it, like it's pretty easy, I feel like it's something you would like. And I fell in love like instantly. That was like one of the first classes I took my first quarter at UCSB. And so I changed my major to biological anthropology, and so I double majored in that. And then as I was going throughout my biology career, when I hit OChem, I realized this was not it for me. I was like, I'm not going to be a doctor. Organic chemistry is just not going to click. I remember going in to take an OChem test and I had to stay up all night studying. And as soon as I looked down at the paper, my mind was blank. Like nothing came. And I was just like distraught. And I was like, you know what? You can still do biology without having to take organic chemistry. And so I switched my bio major to ecology and evolution. And I ended up loving it even more than just general biology, which is what I was studying. And so I think it's like really important to know that it's okay to switch your major, to add a major, to add a minor, to drop a major, because your mind is going to change. And even though you might have majored in one subject in undergrad, you might not end up doing that once you get out of school. And that's totally okay, because regardless of what you're studying, like you're learning valuable skills that you can apply to like a wide range of jobs. Like UC Santa Barbara was such an amazing experience for me because the combination of the things that I studied and the extracurricular activities I did really shaped and informed like what I'm going to do hopefully in the future.
Okay, and we're heading towards the end time, so I'd like to wrap it up here. But I'd like to thank Gabby, Miguel, and Shuyin for your great advice and taking your time to offer it to students.